I'm Shruti Bharath. In 2021, I had my beautiful son, and it's the best thing that ever happened to me. But I also realized that it was an emotional roller coaster. I wasn't ready for all the changes that happened within me and all of my relationships. But I also realized I am not alone. I accessed a lot of great content during this time, but realized that there just wasn't enough from an Indian context. And I want to do something to change that. Last year, I set up Beyond the Bump, which is a fully volunteer run platform. And as part of the content offerings of this platform, I'm starting a new podcast called Bump In. It's an opportunity to meet a lot of everyday parents who share their stories of how they're not only surviving but thriving inside and after the 0 to 24 month phase. So join me as we talk about the highs, lows, the madness, and the inevitable challenges with some laughter sprinkled in between. Be sure to listen all the way till the end for some important takeaways and some resources that might help support your journey. See you soon. Hi Jyoti, hi Aseem. Thank you so much for being on my podcast Bump In. I'm so excited to have this chat with you. And thank you so much for making time on a Sunday, no less, to do this. I really, really appreciate it.
Hi, Shruti. Thank you so much for having us. I think we chatted a couple of weeks back and you mentioned this. So yeah, I mean, I told Aseem and he was immediately on board. So thank you for having us. It's great to be here.
Hey, hi, Shruti. Yeah, I don't leave any opportunities to find an audience to speak, so I'm pretty kicked about this.
Yeah, I picked that up about both of you. I feel like you both have a very open mind, and I'm very, very excited about the cool conversation that we'll have. So, Jyoti Aseem, before we get started with any of the stuff, before we get into the depth of what you've gone through, really like to share with our audience who you are, where you are in the world, and what do you do. You can share both your personal and professional side. That'll be great.
You want to go ahead?
Go ahead, go ahead.
Okay. I mean, we're both married for about 7, 8 years. Personally, for me, I'm currently working with Salesforce. So in the tech world, tech space, always been in technology. About working for about 11 odd years now after my engineering and MBA. And yeah, so tech is professionally my space. Personally, who I am, I consider myself to be an athlete at heart. That's what I've always been for the majority of my life. So yeah, I think that's what I relate most to as being an athlete in some form or shape.
Nice.
Yeah, that's in brief.
So we had a fun conversation on this when Jyoti said that anyone, whenever they ask us, where are you from or who's your family, the first thing we still think of is back our parents, our families, where we come from. And she said, you know what? I think they're asking about us. I said, I believe it'll still be a couple of years before our default family is us
Yeah.
only. So yeah, I'm from Punjab. I'm a banker's son. I moved around a lot growing up, and now I've been into startups all through my life. I got placed with a very nice MNC when I'd done an MBA, but then life took a different turn. Somebody came in and said, "Hey, let's run this gig," and I got into the startup world. I also ran a chain of coffee shops for a couple of years, and now I work with Chai Point, and been with them for about 5 years, so pretty settled here now, and in the middle
Nice.
of my career of sorts, 15 odd years of work experience. I'm a very communities person. There are things that I like, but it's the communities around them that really draw me in. So I love to ride motorcycles. I still actively, it's been 2 decades, and I actively ride even now, and it's a lot about the people I ride with. I read a lot, and I play things very grudgingly only when Jyoti nudges me to let's go play something. That's I'm a non-starter player, but once I get started, I'm good. So yeah,
What a
we've
what
got
a
a
great
dog.
intro.
Yeah, we've got a dog at home. We've got a cat at home, and we've got a 3-year-old at home.
Fantastic, fantastic. So, Jyoti, Aseem, you both remind me quite a bit of my husband and I in some sense. We are also a little bit opposite, have a similar trajectory, been together, which feels like ages now. We've been together half our lives since we were in school, and we have very, very different interests, but there's something that keeps us together, and I guess that word is family,
Mm.
at the end of
True.
it. But such a sweet intro, and really is give me a sense of what I've picked up on about the two of you. There's something cool under the surface, right? And we're gonna pick up on that in this conversation. So why don't you tell us, me and the audience, a little bit about your journey into parenthood? It seems like you both are kids at heart, but what was your journey having a kid yourself? Do you remember those early days, your pregnancy, and those first few months?
In this, let me start first. Let me give a sort of a ringside view as the dads get it. So I was pretty kicked about the idea of having a child, and I think we made fundamental shifts in our career also to accommodate starting a family.
Right.
And I left entrepreneurship, took a job, and so I have pretty much had it easy all through life in everything I've done. Maybe I'm blessed, maybe it's privilege, but and I've never really had to put up a fight or a struggle on any project that I've taken up or any role that I've taken up. And I was pretty convinced, yeah, this should be fine. I'm good with kids. I've been around kids. A lot of my friends are far ahead in the journey who've given me enough gyan on what is and how it is. But it's the first thing that's ever hit me slam in the face. Like, whoa, this is way bigger than I anticipated, and it's way more emotionally needing than I ever anticipated. So, right during her pregnancy, when we had a bit of an episode where it was peak COVID, we had zero
Yeah.
help, and the doctor had advised her bed rest for about a couple of weeks. That's where my real test started. Till then, it was all hunky dory. Yeah, life is good, no issue. What kids? Everybody raises kids. बच्चे तो हो जाते हैं, बच्चे तो पल जाते हैं. Not entirely that much, but pretty confident that it should not be very difficult. So there, the sense of feeling responsible for someone other than you who
It
is
began.
depending
Mm.
100% on you is
Yeah.
where it sank in.
Mm.
I took it. It was tough. It was pretty tough, and we can probably double click on it later. And then when Meher came, first
Mm.
6 months, great. It was back to normal. Everything was absolutely fine. I was getting to spend a lot of time with her. I've been comfortable. I've been hands-on, so that was never a concern. But right around the time when she was, say, 10 months or 10 or 11 months, is when things started to get really difficult because
Mm.
she was sick to her mother. I was not sure if I'm doing the right things. So I have only two modes: full confidence or zero confidence. Okay, I went to my zero confidence mode, and that 1 year or so was pretty rough.
Yeah.
And then post two, things really started to pick up again, and you're like, whoa, all right, life is great now. So that's got sort of been the up and down for me at least.
Nice.
Uh,
Jyoti,
yeah,
you.
yeah. I will try and fill in as well as add how it was probably different for me.
Yeah.
I've so we'd married, and in our, as personalities, I've always been very careless, and I'm very like, it's fine. I don't fuss much or whatever. And Asim is very proper. Like he was when we got married, he was already living by himself for close to a decade with a running kitchen, with a running house, everything that you need. And I was staying with my parents. So that's a little bit on a flavor on personality. So we knew. I mean, we got married. We knew we would have children. I think that we kind of knew. It was matter of when. And when we decided, like he said, we made conscious changes. He we moved from Pune to Bombay. He'd moved, so I shifted my organization from Pune to Bombay. I was with Bajaj Finance before I moved to KPMG, which was Bombay based. So we made those changes, thought of. And like you said, the pregnancy was in COVID. But if you ask my friends, closest of my friends, they were like, I don't know, they were more worried for me becoming a mother than myself. They're like, because the picture they had is she'll take her children to the park and come back alone, forgetting she had children altogether.
Oh
That's
my
the
gosh.
kind of benchmark they had for me. But contrary to that, I mean, I am a very, like, I'm very different. Like, I have, when my switch is on, I'm very like, and I guess that happens with motherhood. Like, body prepares you, nature prepares you. I think I realized that how much we underestimate biology, what it does to you, you're capable of. And we really do underestimate, because we have children a little late now, so we're used to controlling our environment. And that entire journey of, you're capable of more, and biology does it to you. Like, I was, for me, sleep was number one priority over everything. I would, like, in a month, I would have to have a weekend where I would sleep through the weekend for 16 hours, 18 hours. And then there's, forget about after having child. Before itself, your body prepares you. You don't end up sleeping so much and everything. So I
Yeah.
think that was a major shift for me, but it didn't seem as difficult. So yeah, like, it wasn't like I had a very, very happy pregnancy. And of course, like, we were at home, so he was cooking and all of that. And yeah, so I basically, when I entered parenthood, I was at a very, very prepared place. I prepared myself physically. I wanted to have a normal delivery and all of that, and it went on. And God bless, we had a baby girl. So yeah, I mean, that entire part was pretty happy for me.
I love how both your stories sound a little bit similar but also completely different. And I think that's what's amazing about talking to both of you at the same time, in some sense. I can totally relate to a lot of what you shared. I too had a pregnancy during COVID. I moved from Bombay to Bangalore, and then from Bangalore to another country, which was a very interesting choice 9 weeks after my son was born, but that's for another time. And I can relate. I think the pregnancy period is so preparatory. It teaches you, oh, hey, I can do this. I totally know what's going on. And I think it's only when the baby comes that you're suddenly, like Aseem, you were saying, sort of slapped in the face. And Jyoti, absolutely, sleep has such a big role. I don't
Yeah,
think I've ever compromised on sleep, even for an exam, even for
yeah,
work. It's very rare, and it's the only time in my life I've ever compromised on sleep,
yeah.
which is during all of those late night feeds and all of that. But it's really sweet to hear that you guys have such a interesting balance. I want to dig a little bit deeper. So Asim, you talked about the emotionality of the experience in those early days, and how did that change for the two of you as a couple? What was the initial? A lot of folks who I've talked to, and my own experience has been, you start becoming great operations manager. You are managing an operation which is now this new baby, and you forget that you had any other interaction or relationship before that. So it's kind of like, you're putting that on pause in the back burner, and then you're now just chief of logistics and figuring out how to get diapers, how to get XY, solve a problem, and you're moving from one thing to the next. Was that your experience, guys?
Um, so honestly, I have been great at logistics. So that part, in fact, was super easy for me.
Oh, nice.
I
Okay.
set up ecosystems and they run well. So
Nice.
that was not a concern for me at all. I mean, the only thing I still remember is that Meher was gonna come home, and there are a couple of small things that we'd forgotten. I was like, how could I have forgotten these? Oh, okay, no problem. Three, four things and got it and done. But as a couple, you need to, so with two people's interaction, you also need to get a perspective on how each of them are individually feeling changing. And here's
Yeah.
a fun anecdote I've told a lot of my friends who are going to become parents, that especially for a father, it's when let's say you get married, you are like a color television in the 90s, when cable has just come in. The whole family sits around you. You're the center of everybody's attention. People talk to you. You exist. And then the baby comes.
Yeah.
And you're a black and white television of the late 20s, 2010s, 2015s, lying in an attic, serving a purpose, but nobody's looking at you. So the first thing that at least I really struggled with is,
Hmm.
why am I not the center of the universe anymore?
I just want to add one thing here. By people, he means me. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
before
yeah,
I had the child, he
yeah.
was the center of my world, and I would be
Sure.
very like giving attention. And then, like, baby comes, and you're like, okay, who are you?
Second place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead.
So that first realizing this has happened.
Yeah.
Second, understanding, oh, it's having an impact on me, and then processing it and moving on. So that's a part of because you only feel affection towards the child,
Yeah.
but you feel irritated with your spouse that, hey, I'm here, I'm right here. Why can't you look at me? I know you're busy, but why can't you look at me? It's that kind of a conflicting emotion that sort of goes on. But I also believe that if you've built enough reserves of faith and comfort with each other, even though with every small incident you'll be questioning it, but you'll be questioning it at a superficial level. You have
Yeah.
enough to draw on to sort of get through. Um, and yes, even though our logistics were very well sorted, but you still have to do them right. So a lot of
Exactly.
time and energy is just consumed, and time starts to really roll by.
Yeah.
So yeah, having that right reserves really helped us.
Mm-hmm.
And the realization of how one is feeling about it once, on our own, and then how it works as a couple, it's a journey and it takes time. It
Yeah.
really takes time.
And yeah, this was the question which got me really thinking, because yeah, that's what probably we don't talk, like mothers talk about babies so much, and you talk about all of that and everything, but the two people in that equation, we don't get to talk enough because we never give it as much space and time. But I think I'll give a lot of credit to Aseem. Of course, the year one, like he said, was Matt leave was fairly comfortable because I was a free and available, and of course then you kickstart with work, and then you have to get back to work. That becomes your priority. Then you have child as your priority. Then you're just coping at that point, and you're really just surviving.
Yeah.
And while of course he knew that, and but it still is difficult to understand because you also need emotions, you're a person. But you're just like, I don't have time, or I cannot, like, deal with. And I think for men, I obviously will come to that later also, but in the year one, year and a half, I still had more avenues
Yeah.
to be able to cope. I don't think he had that, and I think that's probably something we can cover later. But I think that's something that happened in the year and a half. Maybe it would have been easier on him if things there were more avenues in that point of time. But after year one, I think year one, 18 months, I think he also leveled up and said that, boss, now we need to give this a priority.
Yeah.
Now we need to shift you need to shift your gear from me being a resource to me again, or me just being a father to me again being your husband.
Yeah.
So I and once you have that realization, and once you start making effort, I think that changes. So I think somewhere around 18 months also, we grew secure. Meher was starting to become independent and whatever. So I think that was a good time to take that shift. And then of course then you make conscious changes so that your relationship comes back to being partners than just resource managers, right?
Yeah.
Because like you said, in this, typically how it happens is, child is the project, I'm the project manager, he's my resource, and you have these 10 tasks. Did you do it? SLA, service level, all of that.
Yeah.
But then you have to shift your gear. So I think yeah, that's probably what a little bit about how it went.
No, it's refreshing to hear what you both are sharing. I think what I also pick up on is that there's a lot of self awareness. Clearly, I think the two of you have the history of your relationship, like you said, are seen the reserves of knowing each other well and having that equation, and understanding sort of the overall the perspective. I think, Asim, my follow-up question is to you. I think you probably are in a category where you are more emotionally aware, and you certainly come off as someone with a much higher EQ. I can tell from just this conversation itself. You're able to grasp a situation, process, and come back. But what about for men who probably still on that journey, right? Dads who are still on that journey, really trying to figure out, hey, suddenly I don't matter anymore. Suddenly I need to be told what to do, and then I go do it, and I come back, and I'm just a logistics person, right? A resource. What is your take on dads who are taking that journey, and how can they help themselves?
I think I want to split that into two types of dads,
Yeah,
and no judgment anywhere.
of course, of
One
course.
is the I want to be involved dads.
Yeah,
One is the hey, you have XYZ ecosystem. It's there. I can't do anything in this. Just I'll come and play a little go. Or however, not as involved.
yeah,
First of all, you need to know which side of the fence you're on.
yeah,
You need to make sure your spouse is okay with that. Of course, they will be because they've known you as a person. So having enough conversations about this before you have a child is important.
yeah.
Now, I think your question is more pertinent for the dads who want to be involved.
Absolutely.
I think step one is if you have other fathers around you who are a little ahead in the journey than you,
Yeah,
sorted. The challenge is communities don't exist for fathers like that. And it's very
absolutely.
tough for them to reach out and make those connections as well. While my colleagues and boss were very supportive, but they were not involved the way I was. So I couldn't talk to them about these things. One or two colleagues I could speak, and this was only colleagues because you couldn't meet your friends and you were only doing, calls with your colleagues. One or two
Yeah,
colleagues I could speak to were in a similar journey, but women,
yeah.
and they can't give me the insight or
Perspective.
the
The
support that
dad's
I'm looking at.
perspective. Yeah,
My friends who were involved, their kids are really old. To them, my problems are tiny because, hey, oh, wait till they turn this much. Oh, wait till they
of
get this.
course.
So when you cross a certain level, it naturally becomes very difficult to be there for someone who's going at a very different level. They're level 10, I'm level 1.
Correct.
And um, the reality check that you cannot ever truly fathom what your spouse is going through, trying to build an acceptance and understanding of what they are going through basis what they tell you or how you see them. It's difficult, but the first step is to understand the other person.
Yeah,
If you keep on focusing on yourself, you'll never be able to place your concerns in the right perspective. Are they too big or too small? Only when you factor in that, hey, she's going through this. I think she's really struggling today because this happened. Maybe today my concern is not as big. Or I know she's otherwise this much, and today she's having a light day, and I was affected by this. Okay, today it's important. So figuring out that can happen only when you look outwards and just accept what your spouse is saying. You cannot
yeah,
understand it. You cannot understand it is what I realized. And then try to talk to a couple of people. Maybe you'll find somebody. I finally found a friend whose kid was similar age, and we go way back. And then after that, even when things opened up and I went and met my friends who are not in the same phase, the boys,
yeah,
even that gave me a lot of reserve to come back and give back. So maybe I meandered a little, but to answer or to sort of put it in one place, look outward.
yeah,
Take your wife's word for what she's saying, even if it feels unbelievable. Have friends or look out for friends who are in a similar stage of journey, and don't lose touch with your boys as well. It's very easy to lose that touch, but all those three things are super important. Only then do you understand what you are going through and
correct.
take baby steps forward.
I think absolutely. If the intent is to say, hey, I want to play a role, I want to be a somewhat equal parent, how do I also be available for my partner? And I think what you laid out is very, very important. I think it's also important to benchmark it to what is current and relevant today. I've also seen, and this is as true for mothers as it is for fathers, where you tend to look at your own parents as a benchmark for what is acceptable or not, and perhaps in their time they made different choices, right, in terms of how the roles were divided and how much a mother did versus how much a father did. And today that paradigm is shifting because there's so much equal distribution of economic responsibilities as well. It's not, where one is doing it and the other isn't, and things like that. So I think the tip that you're giving to look out first, find a peer group that makes sense, whether it's colleagues or friends or people who've had kids recently. I think recency being the underline, and then kind of see, where you can draw some inspiration example from them as well. So, and it's great that you're touching upon this, because the very premise of what we are doing today is to create a community of conversations where we can talk about what to expect. And what to expect is not only the biology but the emotions, and the entire thing that comes with it. It's a package deal. Jyoti, my follow up is to you, and I wanted to share, a little bit of my experience to see if this was something that you went through as well. I think in those early days, especially during maternity break, I had my plate full. I think between juggling parts of the home and, managing Surya and myself adjusting to loss of sleep and my hair falling out and just like, dealing with new body image and all of that, I found myself a little bit on edge. I was sometimes a bit snappy, or I would keep score of, how much I did during the day and how much somebody else possibly didn't do. And that wasn't me, that wasn't my personality. I'm a giver, so I don't really tend to keep track in that way, but I definitely changed at that point. Is that something you can relate to? Did that happen to you, and how did you deal with
You
it?
want to tell her about the list?
Oh yeah, yeah, that's a good
There's a
point.
list.
What, of course, there's like 100% relatability. I'm sure it'll be the case for everyone. Most of us, in where we're expecting the father also to play the modern role, we've married into the arrangement that this is a marriage of equals in all
Correct.
forms, and we as women, I think in that equation, we're also very headstrong, so we want to maintain that equality at all points of time in all types of situations. That journey is there, so we are measuring to that benchmark, and at no point we want to let that go, and whatever. So of course that is there, that scorekeeping to bound to happen, it has to happen. But I was just very funny. We've always been people who note things down as a couple. Okay, so early on we would note things, some important things down and everything. And at this point, like you said, at some point in the first year, not necessarily 6 months, but at some point in the first year when things escalated to its peak, and I said, listen boss, this is enough. So, and my way of functioning is, if my head is really chaotic and I'm really frustrated, I will write everything down. So 1 to 200, I think I wrote down tasks. Okay, I wrote down tasks that happen on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on fortnightly, monthly. Okay, that was my frequency, and all the tasks about the house, about the child, about this, about that. Is damn funny. And then I put it, who's doing it. Okay. And contrary to my expectation, because I was so overwhelmed, I thought, out of assuming it's about 200 tasks, maybe it would be 150 that I'm doing and maybe 50 that he's doing. It was actually not that imbalanced when I actually put it down. It was
Nice.
barely, yeah, it was actually, it was a surprising realization to myself that, okay, it's not as cute as I had made it up in my head.
Yeah.
Because your own, I don't know, I think at that point you're so vulnerable, everything is really peaked out. So that list is still there, and so of course this cop keeping totally happened. But I think I don't necessarily take it like I took it and I appreciate the fact that he also takes it in its stride, because after you go through this entire conversation, as long as you have this conversation, then when you move past, you're better placed,
Yeah.
because of course it's playing on your mind, so we neither of us want to ever suppress it. but you talk about it, you move past it, and then you realize that, okay, okay, these things are trivial or whatever. So yes, yeah, that definitely happened.
That's so sweet. It's a very, it sounds like a really fun story now. Must not have been as fun when it happened.
It wasn't. Trust me, it wasn't.
But really really sweet. What I'm picking up, guys, and I think this is something I do in my own relationship as well, is communication. I think it's so
Yeah.
important, despite how under resourced we are in that time, is to make time to sort of keep some expectation
Yeah.
setting, right? I think you have to generally come into this with all of the skills that we've trained on at work and in college, and all that university education we went and paid a lot of money for, is actually what we also sort of have to apply in our
Yeah.
personal life, right? Which is to say, yes, it is it we do both have autonomy here. We're both sort of, leaders at home. How do we collaborate here and not get in each other's way and not get in each other's nerves? And I think that's so important. I don't think as much. I think you guys are very very advanced in your ability to do that, because I don't think this is something that comes by easily for many people, right? It's something that you really have to say, I have the intent to work on it, and then take baby steps. It might be hard. I'm sure it's hard for you both as well, but the intentions, it starts there. It starts by saying, I do believe that we both have an equal role, and I do believe, we both have to sort of divide and conquer in some sense, and then getting through the mess and then getting above it, and it move on. So a couple of more follow-up questions on this vein, and then we will probably wind down. When does it get better? When, I know, Asim, you talked about 18 months being like a touchstone, when Meher was becoming independent, and then you guys started making more time for each other. But a lot of couples are in the thick of it now. They're like,
Yeah.
oh my God, this feels like forever. This is not going to change. I'm never getting a date night back. I'm never going to be able to eat a meal without, my baby crawling all over me. We're never going to look each other in the eyes and actually like have a conversation that doesn't involve poop. So when does it get better, guys?
So there was a phase when I think Meher was from before she was born till about year and a half. I asked pretty much anyone and everyone I
Yeah.
met, hey, when does it get better?
Yeah.
Strangers, absolute strangers. I see a child who's older than Meher and I'm like, does it get better this age? Okay, does it get better? And everybody answered the same way. It's amazing how you can crowdsource and get the same output, that it becomes different.
Yeah, that's
Then
interesting. That's like saying
one
interesting.
person, yeah, there was the one person who I didn't know. I mean, some random person I'd asked. They'd at least taken the patience to explain to me. Physically, it will get better, and you just so consumed physically right now that you feel that it's never gonna end, and it's just mentally it gets a little more difficult. And this was
Yeah.
somebody at work who no, I don't know them that well, but they still took that time and effort to explain this to me. So if you really want to benchmark ballpark it, as she said, 0 to 6 months, great excitement, lack of sleep. Three first month will fly by because hey, you're practically
New
awake.
job. Yeah.
You're awake. You're just absolutely
Yeah.
awake, and new job, nervous energy. Then when your spouse goes back to work, the first 3 months are gonna be rough.
Hmm.
At the how colic kicks in at the right exact time, similarly between 30 to 90 days your wife's gonna say, I'm gonna quit, I can't do this, I was not born for this, I will leave, and how can I leave this child and go to a meeting, this is never gonna work out, this is stupid, whatever's been told to me is stupid. And those 2 months, all you're gonna tell her is just wait 2 months. You feel
2 months.
like this, great, just wait just 2 months, give yourself 2 months, and that phase passes. And I've seen this with
Wow.
many friends to now feel it is an established rhythm. So essentially you want to say when the child is 6 to 9 months, assuming you go back at 6 months, just taking it
Yeah.
back. 9 months onwards, it gets tougher for both.
Yeah.
Child gets a little bigger, they get some sort of agency. They know who is father, who is mother, who has food, who unfortunately cannot give them anything and is a useless resource right now. And they start sticking to the mother more.
Yeah.
We went through a phase where Meher earlier would sleep easily with me, and then she stopped sleeping with me. I took it very hard. So 9 months till at least 18, usually 24 months are the most demanding, because this cute little thing who you put in a baby carrier and take anywhere suddenly wants to do its own stuff,
Yes.
and that's a problem. It's a real problem for you to figure out. Hey, just calm down for a second. So it's your peak. How you design machines for peak stress. That's your peak stress time.
Absolutely.
24 months onward, it rolls off just a little, but you're so grateful for it
Yeah.
that you feel something phenomenal has happened. It hasn't, but you start feeling a little better.
And you feel used to the job a little
Yeah,
bit. Yeah.
you're used to the grind. You have better energy. You've built that muscle, and the kid starts to become just slightly more easier. Then 24, then at 3 years. At 3 years, somehow, 2.5, 3 years, no, it genuinely becomes easier.
Yeah.
Child also
I
starts to do something on their own, and it just becomes easier. And in this, honestly, if we are also wanting to sort of take it to the next step on how to make it easier, I really want to share this. We were Meher was due in a couple of weeks, and a friend of mine whose kid was at that time 6 8 months called me. He called me from the US. It was a very odd time. I picked up the phone. He says, "Hey, what's up?" Da-da-da. He says, "I've called to just tell you one thing. If people offer you help, take it." He says, "I know you're a proud guy, but no. If people offer you help, just take it. Whatever help comes your way, just take it." That was a very important thing that he told me. And we all have certain resources. So let's say parents or helps or somebody. Keep them for the tougher parts and use them. Some of you have, some of you don't. We didn't have any support from our parents. We had to figure something else out. But whatever is there, keep it for the tougher parts. And just sort of this. It's usually a very predictable pattern. I've seen it repeat many times to fundamentally believe that this is the how the sort of age gap to. And post three it starts to become different. And I think post three it's as easy as it will ever be.
yeah.
And then it changes, from physical to mental and so.
Correct. You're cruising. You reach a cruise control at about 2.5, where you know the rhythm, you know what your kid needs. You have a timetable, there's a routine in place. So I totally agree. I think things definitely pick up. 24 months it's that buildup of stress, and it reaches a peak, and then hopefully you crack the code, and then you're able to kind of plateau or come down. Jyoti, your take. Do you agree with this?
Yeah, by and large, I do agree. I think at three, but I was just thinking it definitely differs for some people. Like, because India is a more high context culture, not everybody has the same journey. Maybe you were staying in the first 2 years, you tend to stay with your parents more, or they visit you more. Towards 3 years, they start tapering that down, or, want to get back to your normalcy and, etc. So I think for some people it might be a bit of a delayed journey because of that, because you're not doing things from day one all by yourself. So I think it might be a little different. And then of course some people choose to have decisions of other children. I think that's where 3 to 4 years, they're like, acha, okay, theek hai, I think we've got this,
Life is
let's
good.
take our life back, like,
Miss
come
it.
again, how can we enjoy, just when we started enjoying. But leaving all of that aside, those situations aside, for a normal one child situation, yeah, I think 3 years is a good mark. Even for I think usually I've seen like around 3 years, women then start, at least of our generation, start doing things that they like to do, starting to pick up things that they wanted to do or missed out on in that much time. So I think, yeah, somewhere around that is what I would also say.
And fathers can also handle independently, right? I mean,
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
there's
last
no
year,
Like your
dependency.
first all girls vacation or first vacation
yeah.
probably might happen sometime around three plus or whatever, 2.5, 3. Yeah. So
No, I totally get it. I can already feel my confidence. Like it's already 10x what it used to be last year when he was one and
yeah,
a half to now being 2.5. You feel like you've got it and he's got
yeah,
it. And I think so many points you both mentioned. So, Asim, talking about this constant cheerleading that you need every, I don't know how you're saying 2 months. For me, I need it weekly, where I need to be reminded that I can do it, that I can really do
No,
all of the crazy things I'm trying to do
it's
together, you know.
daily with a time setting of 2 months. Just 2 months more. Just 2 months more.
2 more months, 2 more months,
Two
2 more months.
months. Just give
Yeah,
it 2 months. Two salaries and then you can quit. No problem.
I'm
Yeah.
constantly. I think the with Tejas, it's almost like an open thread. You just like he almost knows exactly what's coming and exactly what he has to say. It's like almost like a script. He's like, it's fine, you got it. You don't have to do anything. You just have to show up the next day. That's all you need to do. That's all you need to do. And then you show up and you're like, whoa, I'm killing it. What was I thinking? Why was I so stressed out about it? So, and I think it's that first child syndrome as well, right? You're doing
Yes.
everything for the first time,
Yes.
and like you're saying, in some cases you're kind of winging it on your own. You don't necessarily have grandparents always accessible, and even when you do, it comes sometimes with, you know, its own limitations and such. This has been great, guys. I want to wind down the conversation with two questions. One is, you talked a lot about community, right? How friends, whether it's, you know, fellow dads, fellow moms, have played a big part in your preparation for the job. This is a lifelong job, whether we like it or not. We've gotten into it, we've chosen it, and now we got to do it as well as we could. What would you advise parents who are either getting into the job for the first time or in the thick of it? How can they help themselves apart from community building, if there's something that you have in mind in terms of helping themselves?
Yeah, absolutely. Right around the time, at least for the fathers, that I wouldn't call it depression, but onset of it or feeling low consistent, that's a very common thing. Take help.
Yeah, yeah.
Just take help.
And for both
And
parents, you mean, not just the dad?
especially the dads.
Yeah,
Dads won't
interesting.
talk about it. Dads
Wow.
won't say that I need it. But any time where you're not looking forward to your morning cup of coffee every day, it's
Yeah.
time to pause and take help. Your community will not be able to help you at that time. Your friends will not be able to help you at that time. Your parents, your spouse, nobody will be able to help you at that time. And you'll be
Yeah.
surprised when you take help. It's just a matter of very normal conversations, very sometimes just finding an hour to speak to
Yeah.
someone who doesn't know you, and they'll tell you the simplest of things. Oh, exercise, drink water, be mindful. And you're like, yeah, I know that. Just listen to me first. Take help. And after that, when you'll ask around, talk to people, you'll be surprised at the number of fathers who've taken help and then really bounced out of it and still are not comfortable talking about it. So no need to talk about it,
Fantastic.
but take help. That's
Oh,
all I want to say.
brilliant. That's a brilliant suggestion. What about you, Jyoti?
Yeah, I just wanted to add one more thing, which I thought really, really, is underestimated and worked really well for us. Around 9 months, and you can't do. I mean, at around 9 months, when your child just about starts to, move around and everything, and I think physically that gets demanding. Also, by 9 months, your healing and everything has happened. I think trying to get more active in terms of fitness, and actually by fitness I mean get a trainer,
Yeah.
get someone outside to come, and even if it's just 5 sessions, because whether you have a child or a girl or a boy, some of them have a lot of energy, they move about, and just that getting up and down from the floor can really like exhaust you or pull you down, and that so you and then you get in a loop. So before you get on those loops, I think it's important to get that intervention right in time, because it's amazing how just like 5 sessions can make your just movement of getting up and down from the floor so easy. And if both put that effort and both do it, then you're very prepared to handle a child which is physically demanding. So I think that really, and before we fall into loops, because once
Yeah.
you've fallen into the loop, it gets very difficult to pick it back up. And I strongly recommend getting an external person to help you with it, because whatever confidence you have or whatever used to you have, it gets very difficult. So just get that, and then that builds up. You start at 9 months, you might increase your level at 18 months, 20 months, and then you branch out and then you do your own things, whatever works. But I think that is very, very important, because mentally and physically it really helps you. So yeah, that's one thing I thought really helped. I mean, and like you said, for women, I think I fortunately had friends. I was in Bombay, the community was really strong. The way they come out to help you, it's just about you taking it, and all of that. So we've done all of that. We've been very accepting of people coming forward in any form or shape. We've taken so many hand me downs for my hair, from kids who are older than her and everything. uh, Gone to their houses and all of that. So yeah, that I think really does help. Also, I think one very important thing, like for me it mattered, was when I was to get into professional life back. And again, one, you just get in, ki, let me just survive, then you want to thrive. And
Yeah.
at that point, if your spouse, or one, starts with, he knows this about you, so he will encourage you. So it starts with encouraging when your own confidence is down, and then when you're encouraged enough, supporting you, because once you take that, you also need someone to offload some of the things. So having that acceptance, because then when that's when you come into a happy place, and that's when you feel like, okay, okay, fine, we're going to get through this. So I think that also really helps, is for your spouse to, one, encourage, to be ready that when she finally takes that step, she will need you to offload for the time being certain things or whatever. So yeah,
Yeah.
that.
No, that's superb. I think the point that you both are making is actually physical and mental wellness.
Yeah,
And also the balance that you're talking about, especially when you go from survival mode to thriving at work
yeah,
again, and needing to have that interplay where it's not just one person kind of taking that entire
yeah,
thing. So I found that, so the first year that Surya was a baby, I moved when he was 8 weeks, and then I moved back to Bangalore when he was over a year. So I spent an entire year outside of India in another country, and I missed community. I think what you're talking
yeah,
about would have made such a big difference. But
yeah,
I think where I compensated was we used to go on walks every evening, like a power
yeah,
walk with the pram with him in it, and it was my lifeline. It
yeah,
helped me meet other people during COVID. It helped me like get fresh air. Got me to work out. Gave me everything I needed to like suddenly have that endorphin boost that
yeah,
allowed me to be better, at
yeah.
home and all of that. So totally understand what you guys are saying. Okay, winding down with the last question, in maybe a few words, guys, is there a myth that we want to bust? There's so many myths around early parenting, early days. There's like mythology galore. Is there something that is a pet peeve for the two of you? Maybe you have different ones or the same one. That if you had the power to bust, you would bust it today.
Of course, one thing is, and it's a little contradictory, that people say that, my parents keep on telling me just have a kid and we'll help you. I'm sure they will not help me at all, or they will not be able to help me at all. It's 50-50. Let them in, and they will be able to help you a little. And no, they can't do the whole thing either. That's
Yeah.
probably the only thing that's coming to my mind.
That's an important point, Aseem. I think you've laid it out in a very simple way, but it's an important dynamic also that shifts with your own parents.
Yeah.
If you don't take it well, if you'll start to resent them also if they don't come there for you the way
Yep.
you might expect. So
Yep.
it's
Yep.
an important adjustment to make. What about you, Jyoti?
I
Anything
think
comes to mind?
one that comes to my mind, and I think we've gone past it, but I would be surprised because we live in silos. Other people might still feel it. I think, help, even in the form of paid help, and we can't underestimate the amount of help, uh,
We need.
importance that they have, whether it is in the form of a live-in help, or somebody who comes for 12 hours, or even a daycare facility. Whatever works for you, so whatever age works for you, keeping your work in mind, personal life, all of that, family, etc. Even if you have grandparents or sisters and other children or whatever, I think that's really underestimated. And all this myth about, when you begin, especially now, of course we've gotten used to it, so we know things don't work like that. But the myth initially, when you're starting, oh, will my child start speaking, in these language only? You don't, and just because started play school, the point is that, take those channels in the way they're supposed to serve. And yeah, that really creates a balanced day for the child, and that really works. And then we're like, enjoy your weekends with the child however you want to. But I think don't fall for all of that talk about,
Yeah.
वो क्या बोलेंगे and all of that. Yeah.
This is a very important point you've touched upon, Jyoti, and I think I also heard a lot of that when I was making my decisions. I think it comes from a certain notion, pressure that mothers put on themselves, saying they got to be everything for their kid. The whole universe has to be provided by this one individual, and now because of more equal parenting, two individuals, which is just unsustainable. Like, how are you
Yeah.
going to do it? There's just
Even for
no
the
way.
child, I've realized even for the child, like child gets fed up of the mother by 6 o'clock. You
Yeah,
also
they
don't
need a
want just
break.
one person. Na, yeah, genuinely, because we are some social people. Even children are social. So as balanced a day that you can give them, paid,
The
unpaid,
better
whichever
will
way
be.
for fashion, I think that works well for them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, thank you so much. I think you're such positive and confident parents, and I hope a lot of your confidence rubs off on people who listen to this. I think uh, things are not as hard as they need to be. I think there's a way through it, there's a way to think about it, there's a way to process it. Getting help being
Yeah.
so important in any shape or form, in a trusted form, is super important. So thank you both so much. This conversation has gone a lot longer than I expected, but I think it was really fantastic, so really appreciate it.
Thank you, Shruti. Thank
Thank
you
you
for
so
having
much.
us.
Thank you for having us.
I hope you enjoyed that very special conversation with a couple for a change, Jyoti and Aseem. There's lots to take away from the discussion, but here are just a few. Your relationship will change after the arrival of a new baby. This is inevitable, and a lot of what comes with it is an adjustment to that change. Particularly, that both partners are no longer able to spend as much time or give each other as much attention as they would have been accustomed to early, and that can be jarring for both people, particularly the father, who isn't getting any attention at all, while the mother is completely diverted for the care of the infant. Of course, this is not always true, and both parents are equally invested in taking care of the infant in many cases. What's important to take away from this is that communication and seeking support is absolutely okay, and in fact, in some cases, required. But the other key takeaway is that this is an evolution, and while the early days may feel up and down and a little bit rough, things do change and evolve as your baby is growing up. And by the time you cruise into the 2-year mark, you're probably going to have a far better and evolved relationship than you ever did before, with a bundle of joy who you both love beyond words. Remember, it's important to seek out all types of support that matter and are relevant to you as individuals and a couple. You can seek out things like your friends who've gone through this journey fairly recently. There are peer support groups, talking to other fathers and mothers, seeking out podcasts and materials like the ones I'm trying to share on Bump In. And of course, if you require more help, seeking out counseling in this stage is absolutely normal and in fact something that is encouraged. Remember, your relationship is much stronger than you think, and you will get through what feels like a long stretch of time fairly quickly onto a new phase of your relationship that you learn to love. Remember, having a baby really does change us, so we do have to show up for ourselves and our little ones with grace and compassion. Think of many of the following suggestions, including using your friends and family for support. Remember, you are not alone. Taking time for yourself, even if it's 15 minutes every day to do something that reminds you of your old self, is so important. Don't be in a rush to bounce back. And remember, you can also seek support through counseling and therapy. Thank you for listening, and we hope to see you on the next episode of Bump In.